Everything is made has value. It wasn't made for nothing.
The sturgeon is very spiritual animal that it just maybe doesn't want to be seen. They're there, but they just want to kind of be left alone.
Some of our elders had noticed that there was a decline in the population in the river.
You don't want to get it to the point where you can't save it.
The Georgian Bay Mnidoo Gamii Biosphere is one of 19 UNESCO Biosphere regions in Canada. And these are regions of global ecological significance where people strive to live and work in balance with nature. The Georgian Bay Biosphere in particular encompasses the eastern coast of Georgian Bay and is situated within Anishinaabe territory. The region contains the largest collection of freshwater islands anywhere in the world. It's known locally as the 30,000 Islands, and it's globally ecologically significant because of the rare species and their habitats that are within this region. So Shawanaga First Nation is the lead on the project. Georgian Bay Biosphere would be the main project partner. There's a lot of really great work that's already going on in Shawanaga, so it was natural for us to want to partner with Shawanaga, and it seemed like a pretty natural fit with Shawanaga's history of species at risk work and as well fisheries work.
Our First Nation has been taking care of our river, Shawanaga River, for the last 40 years. For me to be a guardian of the lands and waters is something that was taught to me from my father, and it was probably taught to him from his father, and so on. And it's he taught me, okay, we got to respect everything around us and everything that gives us life, and give our offering of tobacco when we do take a life to sustain our life.
And we just try to do the best we can for whatever it is that we're doing.
These types of partnerships on the coast are so beneficial for especially species at risk work. So there are, in the Ontario recovery strategy for Lake Sturgeon, there's certainly some gaps or areas that could use more research and different priorities. One thing that really stuck out is when we look through these reports, we see that there isn't a lot of information on spawning populations and tributaries to eastern Georgian Bay. There just hasn't been that information collected recently. And so through other projects, we had heard anecdotally about sightings of Lake Sturgeon in some of these rivers where there isn't much information. And so essentially we figured if we can fund a project to look further into some of these tributaries and gather some information about them, we might be able to fill in some of those missing pieces. Shawanaga River is not mentioned in any reports that I know of.
I've only heard of one sturgeon in there, and it was speared. That was back in the late 70s, I believe.
Josh Paywis speared a sturgeon in the Shawanaga River. I will probably get the date wrong, but it was in a newspaper, so there is a photo of it, and I feel like it's the story that most people know about.
But back when I was young, maybe 25, 28 years old, I had managed to be with my Uncle Bill, and a friend of mine, my brother-in-law Roger, that I had speared a sturgeon. Pictured here somewhere, we'll find it. But that was quite a while ago. Shawanaga River, yeah. That was in May, I think, May. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like a legendary story. In this project, we want to come away with a more holistic understanding of Lake Sturgeon in eastern Georgian Bay. So that goes beyond just the ecology and biology of the species and considers the cultural significance of the species as well.
Being the Sturgeon clan, it definitely wanted me to help more within the environmental field to make sure that even our water on Georgian Bay is protected, because the importance of the fish species that live in there need that in order for them to survive and grow. And the sturgeon being so massive in size, and that comparison between how old they are and my family would be that they're leaders, knowledge keepers. That's the way I think about it. I think leadership is like really big in my family. My Uncle Howard was chief, my brother Dwayne, and then my dad. I've just always seen them doing big leadership roles. The knowledge that we have and the leadership that's gone on in my family for so long, it just makes me think that the Sturgeon clan would be knowledge, leadership, strength.
Gathering and weaving together different types of knowledges for a more holistic understanding of Lake Sturgeon in eastern Georgian Bay. Most of our reports on the species are based on Western science, and I think that's one important piece of the puzzle, but there's a lot more information out there that would help us understand the species a lot more if we were open to including it.
Used to see them at the High Falls, eh? Somewhere. Yeah. The only place that I've seen was in there.
Wood River. Yeah. It's past around.
My friend wanted me to steer it for 1 year, and I'm like, no way, I'm not steering that. I'm like, it's about 7 or 8 feet long, right underneath the bridge.
Yeah, right down below where the Crooked Rapids are. Down a little bit lower than Jameson too. He knew where all the fish were, but
Yeah.
I don't remember catching any when I was around, except for that one time.
And he said that he got the most amazing sight there was that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of sturgeon spawning in the river there in Skull.
They were all historically used. There are rivers. Our people know when they're ready.
The project wouldn't be possible with everybody who has been kind enough to share information with us through interviews.
The whole, like, I'm not talking in a Western science kind of way. I'm like more like traditionally geared to like learning more about them. So I think, you know, seeking that knowledge from other people along my journey, I think maybe that information will be able to come back and I will be able to share that with the First Nation and be like, hey, this is what I've learned about the role of a sturgeon traditionally in the clan system, and we can fill in those blanks. And I feel pretty strong about being able to do that.
Traditional knowledge to me is just knowing and understanding about what's around us and what, you know, how we impact the lives of the animals and fish and birds around us, and how they impact us as well, and then how we make sure that, you know, we got to make sure that everything's in balance. I mean, if it's not in balance, and then it's not going to work. So I mean, like learning the stuff from my father and my mother and my uncles and stuff, have all that knowledge has been passed down from their fathers or mothers and uncles and aunties, and that's been coming down through just being out on the land and knowing, you know, what is there, what we can use to make sure that, you know, our lives are healthy and the life of everything around is healthy as well.
Taking what I know from the traditional knowledge side of it and to bring it over to like Western science would be really important, that the information is right there with it, because then we're getting the full benefits of it on teaching the differences and be like, this is the way we did it and this is the way that maybe could help along the traditional knowledge journey with supporting documents from the Western science.
I think both having traditional ecological knowledge and Western science, benefit each other, going both ways. Like some of the traditional stuff that our elders know is something that Western scientists may not know or don't really see, and so that goes back and forth. There's the Western science might show us something that we're not really aware of.
In that sense, traditional ecological knowledge, local knowledge, contemporary or Western science, they all play a part in building a better understanding of Lake Sturgeon in eastern Georgian Bay. So there's a number of different parts to the project. So there's, obviously, we've been talking about the interviews. Then there's the sort of field season portion of the work, monitoring for presence or absence of Lake Sturgeon in locations that are believed to be spawning locations. The egg mats are essentially weighted plates, so steel plates with a furnace filter type material attached to it. Lake Sturgeon broadcast spawn, so the eggs are dispersed and will settle down to the substrate. And so if we are locating our egg mats in the right locations, then if there are Lake Sturgeon spawning in the area, the eggs will settle out onto the mats. And so when we come around and check those mats every few days, we should be able to find evidence of that spawning because there will be eggs on our mats. So there are other species that spawn in sort of a similar spawning habitat and similar timing, temperature windows. So we may see other eggs on there as well, but we are looking specifically for those sturgeon eggs. Whatever eggs we do happen to find on our egg mats, we do our best to return those to the water. So we're not keeping anything for genetic sampling or anything like that at this point. So yeah, we check those egg mats every 2 or 3 days throughout a certain temperature range. So we start at about 10 degrees Celsius, trying to get on that front end of the spawning period. And then either wrap up the egg mats around 14 degrees Celsius, or if we have found evidence of spawning, so we've found some eggs, then we'll start setting our larval drift nets. And these use a fairly large D frame, so you kind of have your rounded top with a flat base, and the idea is that the D frame sits on the substrate with a large net and a collecting cup behind it. The water flows through the net, and if there are larval sturgeon in the area drifting downstream, we hope to capture some of those in our collecting bucket to note that there are larval sturgeon present. We check those nets daily. We wouldn't want the larval sturgeon to be in those cups for any longer than that. And again, whether it's larval sturgeon or other larval fish or eggs, no matter what we find in those cups, everything is returned to the water. So we check those ones daily, and we'll keep setting those nets up until about 20 degrees Celsius. We were super fortunate to confirm the presence of Lake Sturgeon on 2 tributaries to eastern Georgian Bay this spring spawning season. And that was super exciting because these were both locations that were pointed out to us in our interviews. So it's really great to see that information coming in is supporting our findings. The ultimate goal, or sort of the end product or deliverable from this project, will be a Lake Sturgeon conservation plan for eastern Georgian Bay. And that's where we will bring together all of these different pieces of the puzzle. So the information we've gained through interviews, the information that has come from our fieldwork, and those pieces of information will inform a conservation plan for Lake Sturgeon and Eastern Georgian Bay, and that will be a collaborative approach to coming up with that plan. And ideally what that plan will sort of tell us is a bit of an updated state of knowledge on Lake Sturgeon and Eastern Georgian Bay, but also prioritize next steps. I think there's a lot of information that we could still look to gather on Lake Sturgeon movements, and that might be something for the future using telemetry studies and that sort of thing. This project is important for a number of reasons. It values Indigenous knowledges alongside contemporary or Western or mainstream science. It focuses on a species that has been understudied in Georgian Bay, in my opinion, and underappreciated by the general public. It's not a species that we fish for recreationally or that is commercially harvested, so it doesn't receive the same level of attention as many sport fish, for example. And it's a great example of how we can work together with a number of partners on the coast for the benefit of species at risk.
It would be awesome to see that they're are starting to come back and they would be more readily seen, and I think if that happens, then our work to protect them would just be that much more beneficial, because then we can actually have teachings that are specifically for the sturgeon. I want to take it upon myself to be able to find that knowledge and be able to be the one to share it with the youth from what I learned.
Despite their large size, when they grow to be adults, they're actually consuming quite small prey items. They mainly eat invertebrates. So, I've heard from other people say that everything has its role in the ecosystem, and so while some people might not value sturgeon because they don't personally see how they relate to them in the whole aquatic ecosystem, they have a role in the food chain, and they're sort of just these gentle giants of the Great Lakes that most people don't really ever get to see and don't really give much thought to.